Hey everybody, I'm John.
And I'm Natalie, and we are American Tifosi. On this podcast, we talk about everything Formula One, drama on the track, drama off the track. We're talking about it all here today. And
Uh,
I guess I gotta say there wasn't very much drama on this track, which can be can be
That
understood.
is that is very true. We are going to review the Monaco dumpster fire. Natalie, what is your lasting memory from Monaco?
Um, of course, it centers around the Prince of Monaco, Charles Leclerc. My lasting memory is that he got second, and that's both good and bad. With how the Ferrari has been doing, that's pretty good. But of course, gut-wrenching that he was so close to getting first, and Lando Norris took it away from him.
Yeah, he did. We'll talk about that with qualifying. My lasting memory was just, and I'm you and I are going to have some spicy meatball debate here, but how awful it was. I believe it's the worst race I've ever watched.
Just not Monaco in general, just this specific race.
This specific one. Last year was
Yeah,
probably worse, except my boy Charles won.
right.
So that made it, but this is the worst race. And so I'm sure we're going to have lots to unpack for that. But
Yes.
first, I know I wanted to mention some cool things about practice. Do you have anything you wanted to say about practice?
Um, I didn't watch very much of practice, to be honest with everyone here, but I did see that Charles Leclerc was first for the practices, which made me really happy. I was really glad to see that. But that's all I have for practice. It gave me hope for the weekend, and I wouldn't say that he disappointed, but we'll get more into that later.
For sure. I don't actually don't think he disappointed. I'm disappointed because he was on provisional pole for a little bit.
Right.
But Lando just threw, I mean, Lando broke the track record on that lap. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
and that's what it took to be
By point seven, was it? 0.07? Something
point
like that.
point zero point zero seven is I mean
Point
so
zero seven. He beat Charles. Terrible, but yeah.
no yeah he beat Charles by point seven, but I don't remember, but that's how encouraged I am for Ferrari, is because it
Yeah.
took somebody beating the track record. And oh, by the way, Monaco's been around since the 30s.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the fact that he was able to do that, um, Charles was able to be that close to A, the track record, and
Mm-hmm.
B, pole position. And as we're going to talk about, pole position just equates to the win. So,
Right.
um, yeah, that's all that I really want to say about practice. Other than practice is genuinely exciting at Monaco, and it's so different than all the other 23 racetracks because some practice sessions they want to see, hey, how's my car going to do on the soft tire, or how's it going to do after the tires have been worn. They were all just all 20 drivers were just out trying to throw heaters, and which led to a couple penalties that we'll talk about when we talk about
Right.
qualifying. But everyone's either on a hot lap or a cool down lap, and we
Mm-hmm.
saw like Lance Stroll, your favorite person, um, interfere with your second favorite person, Charles Leclerc,
Right.
and got a
Right.
penalty and got a penalty. That was in
I
practice
think
one, I
that's
think.
that's right.
Yeah. So um, the and spoiler alert, your bold prediction kind of was evidently becoming true because none of the Mercedes were doing really well in any of the practices. And then as we move
Right.
into qualifying, we discover that Mercedes just wasn't very good.
Right. Yeah. Mercedes, I would just like to say I felt bad for Mercedes, of course, but I felt I was tooting my own horn a little bit because I called it. I don't know. I had this feeling they were down. Toto Wolff was gone last week. Kimi was failing in his home race, and I knew that that was going to get to the Mercedes team, and it did. And quali, they both DN or they DNF'd
Yeah.
technically. Um, and I think it was I don't remember how or why. I think watching George's car get pushed all the way back to the pit was incredible. I loved seeing the marshals doing their little switch off
Yeah.
between each other, pushing the car down. One thing I do wish is that they showed how they actually stopped the car because they did this twice in quali and in the race. There were two times that they had to bring the car to the pit, and they didn't show us how they actually stopped the car. I think was it also George Russell whose brakes weren't working in the race?
Well, it
They
was
didn't show us when they
Gasly.
stopped the car.
That
Oh,
was
it was
Pierre
Gasly.
Gasly. No,
Yeah.
Gasly made it
Oh,
all the way to the
yeah.
pit. I
But they
mean, he
didn't show
just
it.
drove
How
to
did
the
they
pit.
stop the car? I don't know, but
Yeah.
that was the one thing I wish I wanted to see that. But yeah, and then Kimmy with the just engine failure, was it, or did he crash? I don't remember. There was a whole lot that happened, but I was pretty proud of myself for that, and I felt bad for
Yeah.
Mercedes. And as a side note, uh, unrelated to quali or the race, me and my friends who are here to watch the race with, we watched this weekend, which we're kind of a little late hopping onto the docu-series, or not docu-series, it's just a one
Single.
20-minute
Yeah.
documentary about Kimi Antonelli joining Mercedes. And it turned us into official Mercedes fans. We went out today actually to the Adidas store here in Barcelona and bought Mercedes hats. Um,
Mm.
I don't know if I don't know if it's a mix of empathy and sadness for them from doing that over the weekend and how well Netflix made this documentary, but I'm an official Mercedes fan now. Nowhere near the top, nowhere near close to Ferrari, but I'm a new
Oh,
Mercedes fan.
so
I've been switched.
so were you switched before Monaco?
I was starting to get there. Like I definitely have been like looking more into like I've been noticing George Russell and Kimi Antonelli more on the screen, like
Mm.
watching the races. I've been watching their numbers and everything. But I wouldn't say that I was like, yeah, I wouldn't call myself a Mercedes fan.
Well,
But I would
re-
over this past season, I've definitely been getting more into it, especially just like with their dynamic, Kimi being a rookie and all that.
well, bookmark this conversation because when we get into the race, I want to ask you if you can help me remember that I have a question to ask you about your
Okay.
Mercedes fandom. So,
Okay.
um, as we move into qualifying, I mean, we kind of discussed it already. Lando qualified first. Charles was gutted kind of at the
Yes.
end there. Um, or
Visibly
crap.
gutted.
Oh yeah, even in the post quality interviews, he
Right.
couldn't even have a smile or
Yeah.
anything. But there was a total of four penalties for all for impeding.
Hmm.
Um, Lance Stroll got one penalty. Actually, one of the penalties was from practice, so Lance Stroll got that
Hmm.
penalty for impeding Charles Leclerc. And then Lance Stroll got another penalty for impeding
Yes.
Pierre Gasly. Lewis got a penalty for impeding Max Verstappen, and then Ollie
Hmm.
Bierman got a 10 spot penalty for
Yeah. Yes.
passing during a red flag. And so all of the penalties were deserved. I'm sure that there's probably some rule somewhere. It just sucked how severe a 10 pace penalty is for
Agreed.
especially at Monaco. Like you're just guaranteeing.
Especially at Monaco,
Yeah.
especially for a rookie. I, it made me upset. And you're right, it is fair. Like rules are rules. If that's
Yeah.
what needs to happen, that's what needs to happen. But that is a lot for a rookie, and that is a lot for Monaco when you can't. There's no overpassing happening at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't recall ever seeing somebody pass another car during a red flag. And that's
Yeah.
like, so if you tell me it's 10 penalties or 10 spots, or if it's a stop and go or whatever it is, because that's such a egregious penalty. It just sucks that, all he said he didn't see it and it was like seconds.
Yeah.
But I mean, this one's kind of black and white. So it was
Yeah.
it's shocking how difficult it was. And then, shocker alert, Esteban Ocon had a hell of a race in Haas.
Absolutely.
So it's like, man, if Ollie was there too, could have that been double points for Haas?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Like,
All right, let's get into this here race.
let's get into it. It's gonna get spicy, I think.
I've already mentioned I called it a dumpster fire. I stand by my words. They they tried to legislate more passing by running a two stop or two mandatory two stops.
Hmm.
Um, the the thing that I have actually, do you have anything you want to say? Because I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant, so I don't want to.
Well, I have lots to say, but
You want to respond to my
I'll just
vitriol?
I'll just respond.
Okay, so the biggest thing I have is kudos to F1 for recognizing that there's a problem. The problem was this
Yes.
is no longer a viable F1 race.
Right.
Um, it is and we keep um, joking like it's still the most exciting qualifying. Right, it is the
Hmm.
most exciting qualifying. It is the best Saturday in F1, period, bar none.
Agreed.
You can't argue that. But I'm not. It's not called Formula One qualifying. It's called Formula One
Right.
racing, and we didn't
Right.
see a race. We did not see a race. So the thing that it's funny. There's YouTubers who shocker or surprise are a lot more popular than you and I are, that all didn't have any idea like what team strategy were going to be. But
Hmm.
it was very clear that F1 knew what all the team strategies were going to be because in the driver meeting before the race, they said, "Hey, look, if you gain a position by leaving the track, the normal spot is a 10-second penalty.
Right.
We know that teams might back each other up, and
Right.
thus we reserve the right to give a stricter penalty." And
Right.
surprise, surprise, we saw George Russell do that. And he said, "I'll just
Yes.
take the penalty." And then
Yeah.
they said, "Oh, yeah, it's not a 10-second penalty." The comment, everyone was expecting a 10-second penalty. And then he got a drive through penalty. Um,
Right.
I don't, and it turns out that's the other thing is the penalty wasn't even strong enough because he
Right.
still was able to finish better.
Yes.
And so Mercedes, VCarb, and Williams all because they had drivers qualify close to one another, they were able to completely game the system, have the back of their two drivers slow down up to 5 seconds a lap. Five.
Yeah. Yep.
That's ridiculous. 5 seconds a
I'll
lap.
let you keep going.
Okay. They slow down, and now they're
Yeah.
all completely off the pace. Um, and it benefited one person from each team. You know, Isaac Hadjar was extremely benefit. Liam Lawson was the first to kind of start this, but then the
Hmm.
Williams boys did it, and then
Hmm.
who the hell knows what Mercedes was doing? So I mean, none
Right.
of them pitted till the end. They didn't have any of their pits done, so it was like, what the heck are they doing? And then they run both pits, and they just completed. I mean, Toto Wolf made a comment like, "Oh yeah, we completely screwed up our strategy. I forgot that it's a two stop. What the hell?" Um, yeah, there is a race, and I don't remember when it was. I think it's like 1976 at Monaco when
Hmm.
only 5 cars finished because everybody
Yeah.
crashed out. Apart from
Right.
that, obviously something like that. But the biggest takeaway that I have is, and I've got the numbers right here. Only the top four. So
Hmm.
18 cars finished.
Hmm.
Only the top four finished on the lead lap.
Yeah.
And the Williams
That's that's crazy.
and the Williams, who finished ninth and 10th, aka scored points,
Right.
finished 2 freaking laps down.
Yeah.
And lastly, at the very end, everybody kind of was thought that there was room for hope because Charles caught up to
Oh,
Lando.
okay. I might have to interrupt this one, but
Hold
keep
on, let
going.
me. Yes, Charles caught up to Lando, but that wasn't Charles catching Lando. That was Charles and Lando catching Max because Max had not pitted yet, and so he was just hoping for a red flag, and he was slowing everybody down. And then, so Charles doing everything he can to pass him, and then as soon as Max pits, what happens? Lando screams off in the distance. It was impossible to pass. There was one. The last. I'm sorry. The last thing I want to say is if you look at the stats, there's going to be something like 140 overtakes. That's because
Hmm.
17 people passed Fernando Alonso when he crashed. So there's
Right.
17 overtakes. When, say, Liam Lawson comes into pit and everyone passes him, those are considered over. There was only one overtake, one
Hmm.
legitimate overtake in the entire race. And it wasn't even legitimate because guess what? Kimi Antonelli crashed Bortoleto doing the overtake. That's the only
Right.
overtake in the entire freaking race. So I don't even want to call it a race. That was the only overtake in the Sunday afternoon cruise. There, officially stepping off my soapbox. It is your
All
turn.
right. Here's I'm going in the opposite direction, and I'm gonna preface by saying everybody hates Monaco racing, and it's a boring race. I was sitting there, the first turn is the interesting part, and I held back. I screamed when that happened when Lando almost skirted.
Yeah, he locked
But
his
and
tires up
then
huge.
right, and then what matters is the last 5 laps, and I was sitting there in the baking sun, sitting there watching the race, and I was thinking, I just want to go home. Like watching 60 laps of this is not enjoyable. But I think that those last 5 laps in that first turn, for me, it makes it worth it. And qualifying makes it worth it. And I love Monaco. I love the race. I hope they never get rid of it. I don't want them to keep trying to add new things to make it different or more like the only thing that's going to make it a difference is making the track wider. And you can't make the track wider because there's water and there's land. And I think that's just something we all know exists. There's certain things you can't change about the race, and that's just how it is. But to some of your points, I think that Max, I was texting John during the race, and I was a little upset with Charles for not going trying to go around Lando. Of course, it would have been risky, but I know that overtaking is possible on Monaco. We've seen it before, but I also understand why he didn't because if you were from Monaco, you don't want to crash out. Second is better than last, so I understand that. But I was frustrated with Charles for not. He was at one point like 0.2 seconds behind or maybe it was like 2 seconds, something very close. So that made me very upset. I was upset with
Yeah,
Charles
but
for that.
every time that Lando, every time they were where Ferrari had the advantage where McLaren was where you needed downforce, so the tight turns.
Right,
So Charles got up onto him, but there was no you're not passing on the hairpin.
right,
So where Charles closes the gap, and then on the just flat out acceleration, McLaren hasn't beat. I mean, and we saw that as
right.
soon as Max pit. So
Yeah,
Charles drove a hell of a great race.
yeah, it was
I
incredible.
don't, I think he needed 15 more seconds a lap to be able to pass him because the DRS zone is so tiny.
Right,
There's no and um, with the McLarens being so much faster than the Ferraris, like even though Charles had DRS, the McLaren was still getting to a 1 second lead. Like it was
right.
crazy. Um, I don't know. I've heard. I'm sorry. I don't. I'll let you keep going if you want.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. To your next point about the Williams and the V Carb and the Mercedes, I actually was my favorite part of the race was watching the Williams and the V Carb drivers together because I really like seeing. I know that it's not a team game, but I really do like to see them working as a team and working team strategy. And I will say that I think that Carlos was kind of he didn't get it wasn't very fair race for him. He kind of got the short end of the straw.
Yep.
But I did really I enjoy I mean, if there's no overtaking, there's nothing else happening on the track, at least make it a little dramatic. And I was impressed to see Liam Lawson being a team player because
Yeah.
both you and I at this point we aren't big Liam Lawson fans, and that doesn't
Welcome to
seem
the
like
club.
something that he would do, and he did it. Was he told to do it? I'm sure it wasn't his choice to
Yeah.
do it, but he did it, and he complied, and it didn't seem like he was too upset about it in the post-race interview. So I was impressed to see Liam Lawson handle that with such elegance, I guess, for lack of a better word. Um, and I was happy to see Williams doing it just because I'm a Williams fan. And George Russell taking the penalty was ridiculous, but it added some drama, which we like to see here on the American Tifosi podcast. And
True.
you and I talked about it, but some of you may have seen it as well. But post race interview, George Russell made some comment about Alex needs to buy me dinner tonight, and later
He
Alex
did.
posted, and he did. He did buy
Yeah.
him dinner, which I think
Yeah.
is really sweet because George Russell, watching that happen, I was like, uh-oh, like George Russell, Alex Albon, they're fighting. But then I remembered, they're friends, like they're actual, like they're good friends. Um, which I also like seeing how, like, what happens on the track, how does that affect their friendships and
Yeah,
that sort
because
of thing. So,
we've seen that George Russell and Max Verstappen, who used to be friends, are not
right,
friends at all
they're
anymore.
not
So
friends anymore.
yeah,
So that was a close one for Alex and George, but it seems like they've moved past it. Um, and honestly, I don't want to talk about Kimi Antonelli. I'm feeling bad for him. I
right.
feel terrible. Like you said, Toto Wolff said that they forgot to do the two pits. Maybe that's true, but I don't understand how like a multi-million dollar corporation who's riding on the performance of their drivers forgets to pit their drivers. That
So
that just I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I don't know
I think that that
if
was
it is
a
true,
bunch
it
of.
can't be.
I think it was a bunch of BS. I think that he didn't want to admit that their strategy was terrible.
Right. It was
Their strategy
awful.
was yeah. I think their strategy was terrible, and they didn't want to admit, "Yep, we realized that everyone else outthought us."
Right.
So it was just easier to say, "Oh yeah, we forgot we had a two stop," and I'm like, "That's
You can't
there's
forget
no
that.
possible way that's true." That was the entire conversation in the paddock leading up to the race, the
Right.
last week, hell, the whole year. So
Right.
there has been lots of ways to talk about fixing it. And to your point, the road can't be widened and it's surrounded
Hmm.
by water. There is a couple architecture geniuses that have suggested building it out onto the building a different turn out over the
Hmm.
water.
Yeah.
That won't fix it for next year.
Right.
Next year it might be different just because the cars are not very much, but 11 centimeters narrower.
Hmm.
And they have two different forms of DRS. One that's supposed to work in the turn, and it's not DRS, but whatever it's called. One that's supposed to work in the turn. So um, I am salty because it is on the greatest weekend of. I don't think I agree with you 100%. I don't think Monaco should go away. Um,
Hmm.
I think it should be changed.
Yeah.
I think that it shouldn't be. I think Formula One should recognize quickly that it's no longer their best race.
Right.
It can be the most popular, sure,
Hmm.
but the last Sunday in May, it's not the last Sunday, is it? Yeah, Memorial
Yeah.
Day weekend that Sunday is touted as the greatest weekend in motorsport.
Mm.
Because they have the Indianapolis 500, they have the
Hmm.
Pepsi Cola 600, they have the MotoGP, whatever,
Hmm.
as well as Formula Two and all sorts of stuff. And it sucks that Formula One's supposed to be the best racing sport in the world, and it's for 4 years in a row has delivered the worst of the four races.
Right.
Everybody, and I watched the Indianapolis 500. I was jonesed about it, and I will say that's one thing that I would be interested to see that. It's at some of the Indy races that are known to be difficult to pass on.
Hmm.
They don't mandate pit stops. They mandate you must use all the tire compounds.
Mm. Yeah.
So I wonder if that would work because I understand that we might see the exact same thing that happened this past. But if you want to get the most out of your tires, then you wouldn't want to for example run hards and only run it for
Right.
a lap or two whatever.
Right.
You would want to run softs and do a short stint and then do medium.
Hmm.
I don't know if that would fix it. I'm guessing you'd still get two stacked pit stops and you'd still get teams.
Right.
Another thing that you could do is say that your teammates can't be on the same kind of tires.
Yeah. I just
Um,
there's so much speculation that happens every year of what can they do to make it better. And I'm under the impression that there's nothing to make it better except maybe adding another turn like you said. But I
I
did appreciate some of the drivers even were coming up with silly responses of
oh
how to
yeah,
make it better. But I don't know. I think for me personally, you look at the Monaco Grand Prix, you think, wow, that's an iconic drive. It's not a
yeah,
very interesting race. There's not really much we can do about it. There even if
yeah,
we have to use every tire, I mean that just means more pit stops, but
right,
there's still no overtaking happening. So I don't know.
yeah. That's the thing is, I mean, if I had softs and you had hards, I don't know that I'm still passing you because there's no place to
Right.
pass.
There's no space to
Um,
pass. Which,
I
speaking
think
of passing, oh, do you have something to
like I
say?
just
I was gonna
one
say
other
we
thing
should
is
talk about Pierre Gasly, but you go
for sure.
first.
I would just like to say that at least consider moving Monaco to a different weekend.
Mm.
If this
But
is if that Sunday is and it's like mutually agreed on by all the sports and like for example NASCAR is not even in FIA but Indy is and
hmm
MotoGP is um,
right.
they all are trying to make it be so pick a different race. I know
But
that for
Monaco is like the most known one is the problem.
true. Well, so here's the thing: like NASCAR, the Charlotte 600 is not even close to the most known one.
Hmm
It's not the Daytona 500. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not Talladega. It's not Michigan. It's not
hmm
all. Um, it doesn't need to be the most known one. It just needs to
Yeah.
be a good race. So
True.
I would,
Yeah.
like swap the 2 weekends. I bet the next weekend with the race you're going to, Barcelona is going to be awesome. Barcelona's
Yeah.
a great track. It offers
Right.
hell. Imola was a great race.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's just and it's funny. I watched some British YouTubers commenting on the Monaco race, and they were like, it turns out that Monaco is just nap time before the Indianapolis 500, and these
Yeah.
are like European Formula One drivers or Formula One
Right.
guys that think Monaco is important, but it's like, all right, I'm just
Right.
going to take a nap. Obviously, it
Right.
doesn't work for me, but it's like now, hey, do I even want to set my alarm for 4:30 in the morning to get up?
Right. Yeah,
So,
I get that.
but um, and then one other thing that I wanted to say that was going to segue to the question I needed to ask you is
Okay.
how often do you see Toto Wolff and Christian Horner agreeing? And
Never.
they both have come out this week and said changes need to be made in Monaco. I mean, so
Yeah.
when these two titans of the sport who never
Hmm.
agree on anything and hate each other and
Right.
deliberately try to push each other's buttons are coming out
Yeah.
mutually saying, "Yeah, we need to do it." But yeah, there was a moment of interest. Well, one moment of interest, one glimmering
Yes,
moment of interest
there
where
was.
Pierre Gasly decided to mount Yuki Tsunoda.
You know what? He did what everybody else was too scared to do, and I give him props for trying. But man, when you watch that replay, it's just like, what are you thinking? There is clearly no space for him at all trying to
Yeah,
pass Yuki.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, you can't go
at
around
least
him,
he
so
tried.
he decided to go over him.
He tried to give us something, but
Yeah,
it did not work out well.
that sucked for our boys in Alpine.
Oh, I know it. I know it.
Pierre went out, and in reality, I don't know how and maybe he still will. I don't know how he didn't get a penalty. Obviously, his car was ruined, but he
Right.
was leaving. He was like a leper, leaving parts of his car all over the track just to get back to the pit lane. He said
Right.
he didn't have brakes. Well, of course he didn't have brakes because he didn't have a front tire.
You don't have
Um,
a tire to break.
right, but like just run it into the wall. But they left so much
Right.
crap out on the track. Um,
Yeah.
but it did allow for a safety car, which increased some of the interest because who was pitting, who wasn't, that
Right.
and that was and then Fernando.
Yeah. Um, this, well, one, I know that after, I think it was Q2 or maybe it's Q1, he said something like, I need to go back to the pit. Like, I'm done. I'm tired. Like,
Yeah,
he got like some plates or something, which I thought was sweet, sweet old man. He's tired. He needs to go back to the pit. And he goes out on that track and it's just over for him.
yeah,
That was sad.
and he
And
was strong in the points.
yeah, he was. He was very strong in the points. And being in Barcelona, his home race, everybody around me was very disappointed. Everybody was
Yeah,
shouting at the screen and they were
yeah,
very angry. Um, I would like to say this Fernando, because I'd like to bring us back to last week when we were making our predictions. This is the first prediction that you jinxed, um, which
yeah,
slowly edges us to the big mistake that you made for podium prediction. But yes, I was sad for Fernando. I hope he does. I'm not even gonna say anything about Barcelona yet. I'm not gonna
yeah.
bring that up.
I'm sad for Fernando, legit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just he said at Imola he's the unluckiest driver in the world, and we kind of
Right.
joked that you shouldn't really believe anything a driver says. But man,
Right.
I mean, just
Yeah.
and Lance Stroll is terrible. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my office mate kind of joked with me. He's like, "So when are we going to admit that Lance Stroll is a better Aston Martin driver?" And I looked at
Whoa. Whoa.
so
Whoa.
I looked it up. Fernando Alonso has outqualified Lance Stroll the last 20 races. And so I responded to my office mate. I said, Lance Stroll can be considered a better driver when he actually outqualifies
Right.
Fernando one time.
Yeah.
Before I move on, I want to ask you a question because Miranda and I were talking about this, but our other American Tifosi member. But I think that Fernando was your favorite driver when you started. Is that true?
Okay. So it was Charles because before I got into Formula One for real, he was the prettiest one on the track. But one of the first, I'm not sure if Monaco was the very first race that I watched, But one of the first races that I watched, Fernando got a podium. I think it was the last podium that he got, and it also happened to be his 300th podium that he's gotten.
That might have been
Um,
Monaco, actually.
I think it was Monaco, and that just stuck out to me. And I just thought he was sweet. Like I thought he was a sweet guy. So I think you're right. I'm gonna say it was Charles, then Fernando.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, Fernando was, and you know what? He still has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, me too. I've always liked him. He is kind of a ruthless nomad. I mean, he's
Hmm.
bounced around all the teams,
Yeah.
and so um, I had a question that I was supposed to ask you, but because of the drama we saw or lack of drama we saw with Williams, who you say is one of your favorite teams, and now you're a Mercedes fangirl. So, um, who do you prefer? There's obviously Ferrari, we're American Tifosi. Then who?
Right. I Okay. I'm gonna say that the answer is Williams. I'm a little upset with Carlos because he was late to the fan Q&A today. He was about 2 hours late to that. Not sure why. That made me I was a little frustrated with that. I'm gonna say Williams, but I am a little upset right now. Ask me again in a couple days. It'll be a solid Williams.
Okay. All right. Well, should we go over our predictions? We kind of talked about it.
Let's. Yeah.
Uh, my pole position was Charles. No
Yep.
point for me.
No points. Me too.
My podium was Charles, Oscar, and Williams, and I
Wait,
changed it. I
can
changed
you
it to
can you
Carlos.
can you repeat that last one for me really quick?
Charles,
Was
Oscar,
that
and Carlos.
Got it. So now we're gonna go back, like I said we would. Last week I said we're gonna go back to this moment when you jinxed it for Carlos, and here we
Fair.
are.
Yeah.
Did Carlos perform well? He got the short end of the Williams stick, I would say. Definitely didn't get a podium. So I'm
Yes.
saying, I'm saying that I knew this would happen. Here we are. I
Uh,
was a prophet this weekend, I have to say.
I would say, and this is the first time you've ever outscored me in a week.
Thank you,
So
everyone.
I got no points for my podium. You had Charles, Oscar, Max. You also got no points for your podium.
And you know what? I honestly feel like at the end there, Max kind of just gave up. Max doesn't like Monaco, and he's got a baby at home he's got to worry about. And I watched a few clips of him just casually hopping on his boat to go home, and that seems like a Max move. I think
I think he
like
cared
ran
because
over it.
with 3 laps to go, he was in the first place. He was waiting for a red
Right.
flag.
There was
Um,
speculation over was he racing his own race? Was he trying to help out Lando? Was he trying to help Charles? I don't know.
oh,
At
I
this
think he was
point,
trying to help out Charles
I
because
think he was trying to help out Charles too.
yeah, he totally. I don't think there's any debate. I mean, he sucked them in for hopefully to let Charles pass because Charles had
Right,
medium tires and Lando had hard, so he gave
right,
Charles the advantage of the tire. But again, it's not passable. So
right.
bold prediction: I had points for Fernando. Jinx that too. No point for me.
Jinx that. I said, I got both of these points. I said Mercedes fall off. That happened. And Isaac Hadjar goaded. He was absolutely goaded this race. Going
Yeah,
into GOAT of the day, I said Isaac Hadjar and maybe Liam Lawson just because I've never seen him be a team player and he's a team player this week, which I
uh-oh, what happened? Hey guys, sorry for that. Natalie has lost power or service or something, so we were going to wrap up anyway. I just want to make sure we covered our GOAT and driver of the day. Natalie, for GOAT of the day, accurately had Isaac Hajar and was discussing Liam Lawson as well for good reason. I had Lando Norris with small points to Esteban Ocon. We didn't really talk about him, but Haas getting points at Monaco is noteworthy. Donkey of the day. Natalie had Mercedes, and we discussed that at length. They both finished out of the points, so yep, she would be right for that. I had F1, Monaco, Williams, Mercedes, and B carb for all the reasons that I discussed, and my vitriol for the Monaco GP. We're going to wrap this up. we'll be back with you soon to do a Barcelona preview, the race that Natalie's going to. So that'll be exciting, and you should look forward to seeing some fun stuff from us. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.